Hello, blockchain people. Vikrant, welcome to the Blockchain People podcast, powered by Decor, the decentralized objective research engine. At Decor, we are a distributed team of researchers creating institutional-grade research for capital institutions to understand and fund the true innovators and disruptors in decentralized ledger technologies. As you can see, we're doing this podcast to help educate the public and create an audience for the decision makers in the blockchain space. If you'd like to support this mission, all we will ever ask you to do is to hit the subscribe, follow, like, or whatever button you currently have in front of you. And of course, you can do this either on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or whatever it is you listen to podcasts. Just search for either Decor or the Blockchain People podcast. Today, we have Vikrant Sharma here. Vikrant is the mind behind Cake Wallet, the first iOS-friendly Monero wallet ever, also available for Android, and a corner piece of the current Monero ecosystem. So, Vik, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
We have fun.
I know I'm here. Yeah. I know I'm here to talk about Monero, but let me plug something. We launched our Bitcoin wallet yesterday on iOS and Android. But anyway, let's talk about Monero.
Congrats! I did see that. Later, I'm gonna ask you to tell me how does that work to plug in Bitcoin as well into that. But first of all, I just wanted to do a couple of shout outs and just mention quickly why are we doing 2 episodes on a row on privacy coins. And I'm gonna thank first of all Reddit users, Megatriopolis, True Decent, Knife of Pi 2, Samsung Galaxy Player, Golden Sparrow, and Monero WTF for telling me that I should have you on the podcast and tagging you and pretty much organizing the whole thing.
That's an honor. Yeah.
It's very obvious that these guys love you and they would like to hear this conversation with you. And yeah, the story with this is that I started. We just recently did a podcast with the co-founder of Firo, Ruben Jab, and posted the conversation on the Monero subreddit, which made a couple of people angry. They didn't like it that much. And after hearing them out and everything, I understood that it would be great to have someone to talk Monero on the podcast, so the listeners could have like both the more centralized perspective and the decentralized open source perspective on privacy coins. So if you like, let's start on that. If you had to explain Monero in a couple of sentences, how would you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, before we talk about Monero, I think maybe we should talk of privacy and fungibility. And this is something I've been thinking about actually, and I'm glad you had me on because it gives me a platform to talk about this idea. Maybe we need to stop using the word privacy, because as we've seen with Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram, people aren't really that concerned about privacy, right? Even Google and Gmail and Google Maps, all that data is being shared, your IP address is being shared. Maybe people are not that concerned about privacy as they act like it. Yeah. I mean, how many people have actually gone ahead and deleted their Facebook account? Maybe some few hardcore people have, but not many. So maybe we should focus more on fungibility, right?
I'm sure you also saw a lot of people installing Telegram like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure none of them is using it currently.
Telegram and Signal. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, like everyone's jumping on the bandwagon now and going on Signal, but Signal wants your phone number. So I mean, what privacy is that, right? So maybe we should focus on fungibility. Yeah. Maybe that should be the selling point of privacy coins, not just Monero, but other coins as well. I mean, just for reviewers, fungible, what does it mean? So what fungible means is when you have a set of items, whatever items they may be, bolts or dollars or coins or what have you, sheep even, you can replace any of those pieces with another piece in that same set, right? So for example, take IKEA, when you are building an IKEA desk and you get those 5, it says you have 5 of these washers. All those 5 washers are interchangeable. They're fungible with each other. You don't have to pick that exact one. You can pick any of those 5. And the same with dollars. You go into a store and something costs $1, and in your wallet, you open up your wallet and you have 5 $1 bills. It doesn't matter which one you pull out. They're equal in value. They're fungible. So I think maybe the concern of privacy coins, or the concern of the public, should be maybe more fungibility if they don't care about privacy. Even Bitcoin maximalists have tweeted, I've seen, hey, don't send me Bitcoin unless you put it through a mixer.
Okay.
So, right? So the problem, and I'm not here to bash Bitcoin. I mean, we just added Bitcoin to Cake Wallet. It's done tremendous thing. It's the face of cryptocurrency. Nobody wants to see that fail. If Bitcoin fails, cryptocurrency in general, I think, is going to take a massive hit.
Everything goes down with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So fortunately, unfortunately, Bitcoin's become the face of cryptocurrency, and it's great. I mean, it's done amazing things. It's widely accepted. Now you're seeing Wall Street get into it and all that. But one of the problems with Bitcoin, it being an open ledger, the question always arises, is Bitcoin fungible? Does one Bitcoin equal one Bitcoin? And that's a question everybody is struggling with. You have chain analysis companies who are tracking each Bitcoin transaction. So let's say there's a huge transaction done on the darknet market for some illicit activity, whether it's drugs or guns or what, contraband or what have you.
Okay.
Now that Bitcoin is being tracked, and you end up receiving that Bitcoin through maybe one hop or two hops, do you want that Bitcoin? Or are the authorities going to relate that to you that, hey, you were the guy eventually going to get that Bitcoin, so you're behind these dealings?
Right. Or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and things get mixed up and your name is on a list all of a sudden.
Exactly. So, and then there's the flip side to that. People are willing to pay extra for clean Bitcoin. A brand new, clean, just mined, never used any transaction. Some people are willing to pay more for that Bitcoin. So then the question is, does one Bitcoin equal one Bitcoin? So maybe fungibility should be a bigger question for users of cryptocurrency rather than privacy.
Okay, and
privacy, nobody cares.
Well, privacy becomes something of a bad word, right? Yeah. You're either a conspiracy theorist or hiding something, or you are a clean, honest, transparent citizen, right? People somehow tend to lose the middle ground. And I'm curious, when it comes to privacy coins, and of course, we're going to elaborate more on privacy coins and what Monero is and all this. But when it comes to privacy coins, maybe this is a good plug to start explaining what Monero is. What makes a privacy coin better than a Bitcoin passed through a mixer?
Yeah, I mean, if you pass Bitcoin through a mixer, the big exchanges like Gemini or Kraken, they're well aware of that. They can see, okay, this is coming from some mixer. And you will get kicked off the exchange. So you end up playing a game, right? You end up playing a game that, trying to hide it, trying to spin it. Why do that when you have Monero? Right? Yeah. Just use Monero, as we like to say. Or let me take that back. Use a privacy coin, right? Or as Michael Saylor says, maybe you need a Monero if you want privacy and fungibility. So I think that's the difference. I mean, the mixer will be found out. You can trace it back to a mixer because it is a open ledger, and you can see all the transactions and all the balances. So, so although fungibility and privacy may be two different goals for different users, but the blueprint to get there is exactly the same. So, there is, I guess, a certain part of the public or cryptocurrency users that believe if you have privacy coins, you're doing something crazy or something illegal, where in fact, you just want to remain private and make sure your currency is fungible and that you'll always get one Monero for one Monero.
I guess that the Monero community is a bit intimidating when you first stumble at it, because it's a very passionate community. It's obviously comprised of some very smart people, some people that are very technical, and people in there they like to talk seriously. They like to in those communities, there's always a tendency to push away the newcomers or the beginners, as to say, which is good that we have this
Right.
kind of conversations with people that can explain things on a very non-technical level.
Yeah. The Monero community, I mean, it's definitely filled with geniuses. I think these people, and I've said it before, maybe a few years down the road, 10, 15 down, they'll be praised for their just ingenuity and win Nobel Prize in mathematics or encryption or something. These guys are just amazing. Last year, I think it was last year, the MoneroCon conference in Denver, where it was a 3-day event, wonderfully done. I probably understood 1% of what's going on, and that I'm probably giving myself too much credit. I mean, the presentations done by these PhDs or even non-PhDs is doing brilliant work. I was lost. So that, I agree with you, that can be intimidating for sure. And there are some people in the Monero community which kind of bash Bitcoin too harshly. And that turns some people off for sure, that happens. But overall, it's a good community. I mean, if you come there, they're 100% willing to teach you about Monero and privacy. And there's no talk of money in the Monero community, which I really like. There's no talk of Lambos and the moon. Yeah.
Which is something that you cannot say about the Dogecoin community.
Those community is fun, right? It's purely fun, I think. Yeah. Even Elon likes that, right? But the Monero community, they're there to help for sure, and I say that from personal experience. When we launched Cakewallet in 2017, we built it purely in a vacuum. We didn't go to the community, but once we revealed the product to the community, they were very much supportive. Helped us along both on a technical front as well as understanding front.
And
as I said, Cakewallet is for noobs by noobs.
Right. Yeah. So sorry to everyone listening to podcasts in general in 2020, 2021. It's extremely easy to interrupt each other when you're on Zoom.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's on me. That's on me. What I wanted to say, to interject a bit here, is that some people might be wondering, why is it that this community is so full of smart people and PhDs and these kind of academics even? And the reason for that is that privacy, turns out, it's incredibly hard to achieve, or at least true privacy. So it takes a lot of effort to hide things and to do them properly. And for what I was listening, I was listening to a couple of videos from that event that you were mentioning, just to be more updated on what's going on right now in the Monero community. One gets lost. And so some of the things that most people talk about is that they're always on the fence on whether Monero is enough to do what it's supposed to do, or if there are more things to be built upon it.
Yeah, so I mean, Monero is always improving. I mean, every year, every 6 months, you could see some massive leap forward in Monero. The biggest leap over the last few years was Bulletproofs. Well, let's just talk Monero first. Yeah, I mean, how does Monero work? How does it achieve privacy?
Can you start with not only what Monero is, how does it achieve fungibility and privacy, but also a little bit whatever you feel like it's important to add in there about the story of Monero, the history of Monero?
Yeah, I don't know much detail about the history of Monero. I know it spun off from another crypto node based coin. It was called Monero. Then a group of people, including Fluffy Pony and some people, they forked the code, not the blockchain, they forked the code and came up with Monero. And I'm probably missing a couple episodes in there in the history, but that's the quick story of it.
Yeah.
So Monero itself has been around since 2014. I mean, it's been around for a long time. Sorry, my dog is growling. Let me just get him.
We always have dog noises in the program, no problem. And here I'm just gonna add a bit more context into what Vik was saying. Here we have with Monero a project that's completely open sourced, and that means someone posted it up on the internet as an idea, as a white paper, and then the community had to get together and people had to essentially work for free to build this new cryptocurrency from scratch that could be used for as digital cash, as actual digital cash that respected the same principles of cash, which starts with fungibility itself, as Vik was saying. $1, a $1 bill, and here is the dog. That's a great dog.
Yeah, you know, with Bitcoin, there was no pre-mine. There's no dev tax that miners are forced to pay, unlike some other coins. It's fully open source. And there's no company behind it. It's community driven. So all those things attracted me as well to Monero. And there's ongoing development all the time, new things. I mean, we can get into some of those if you like. But go ahead.
It's really impressive to see how the community self-organizes, and with these open source projects that people you can see are purely in for the tech, right? It's a huge community and a huge effort, and it's done completely, almost voluntarily. Yeah. So continuing on with the.
Yeah, and I think we're the Cake Wallet is the best example of that, because we didn't go seeking permission from anybody. We didn't go seeking collaboration with anybody. All the code is out there, and you can do whatever you want. I know some other privacy coins approached us about being in Cake Wallet, and I didn't like what they were doing. And I said, look, I just don't believe in it. And they got pissed off. And they said, well, we'll never be in Cake Wallet. Well, then are you truly an open source community driven project if you can stop people from working with that product? So Monero, you can't. I mean, nobody can stop you from doing what you want. I mean, still today we get calls and emails. Can you hook me up with the marketing department? Can you hook me up with the the head guy of Monero? It's nobody. It's the community. So it's and like Bitcoin was, and that's another perfect example.
And we see, we see that this project was built to, as we were saying, to build on a digital version of cash, perfectly fungible, perfectly private, perfectly untraceable. So how does it achieve it, Monero?
So Monero has privacy on 3 fronts. Yeah, it hides the sender's information through something called ring signature. I think right now it's 11 ring signatures. So the ring is comprised of not the actual sender's addresses. It's comprised of old outputs which function as decoys in the ring. So it's basically saying one of those outputs is the real output. We don't know which one it is. Yeah. The other way it hides information, they hide the amount that's being transmitted with something called bulletproofs. Bulletproofs are a type of range proofs, and again, you can have a PhD on to talk about that. So basically, the amount that transmitted is also hidden, and then finally, the receiver. Receiving address is hidden through something called stealth addresses. So for each transaction, there's a one-time transaction address that's created, and that's somehow linked to the actual address, but that address disappears after the transaction. So everything is hidden: the sender, the receiver, and the amount transacted. That's not the only thing. One other thing that I very much like about Monero is that you get all this privacy of the sender, receiver, the transacted amount on all platforms. and you'll actually see me tweet that many times, and I've said that in other presentations. Kind of an informal tagline for Monero for me is all the privacy all the time. So whether you're using a mobile wallet like Cake Wallet, or whether you're using a desktop wallet or a web wallet, or even an exchange, you'll get that privacy. You can go to the blockchain with the transaction ID. You can see that a transaction happened, but you can't get any info on it. Yeah. Just comparatively, and again, I'm not here to bash other privacy coins, but I know for a while, a lot of coins were, okay, you can only get that privacy if you use the desktop wallet, or you can only get that privacy if you use the web wallet. But Monero, from the ground up, from the base layer, the privacy is there. So no matter where you implement that code, you're going to get that privacy.
Okay, and here's a fun example just for more non-technical people, and to plug back in our previous guest. He was describing Monero and, well, privacy coins in general as CPU, and pardon my French during this example, but
Sorry.
He was describing privacy coins, and of course, excuse the wording. These are not my words, but I thought it was pretty nice. No, that it was privacy coins were like if you were going in to fart in an elevator. So of course, if you're in that situation, you wanna go in with 12 other people. You don't wanna go in by yourself, or you don't wanna go in with another person.
Somebody did it. You don't know.
Yeah, right. Somebody did it, and no one's gonna talk about who.
You're right. Exactly. But just to clarify, it's not even somebody. It's the hash of the transaction that happened before. So going to your example, it would be, if again, this is getting dirtier and dirtier. if everyone took off their pants and threw them in a pile, and you smell each pant to see which one had the fart come off, but you don't know which pant belonged to which person in the elevator. So it's just not the person who did it, but it's another step in between.
Right. And ideally, Monero keeps building steps in between, right? This is what the community is trying to do, to make it harder and harder and more private every time.
Exactly. And the Monero Research Lab is always investigating and experimenting and stress testing all these different various technologies, and see, number one, if it's good, and number two, how it can be implemented into Monero. The biggest one being Bulletproofs, which was a huge leap for Monero. Just in terms of dollars, Bulletproofs was such a massive leap. Each transaction, a Monero transaction before, used to cost you a minimum of $2. After Bulletproofs was implemented, it actually outperformed than what we even expected it to do. Each transaction went down to below 2 cents. Actually, sorry, 0.2 of a cent. That's how good it was. We thought the researchers said, okay, it's going to be 80% improvement, 90% improvement, but it turned out to be 99.98% improvement. I mean, it was amazing, or 998. So things like that keep happening. Before Bulletproof, so each transaction size was so huge, and Bulletproof, again, like I said, reduced it by 99.99%. Everybody used to say, Monero is unsustainable. Look at how big the blockchain is. Look, it's so heavy. It's going to be, in a year, you're going to need 10 terabytes of hard drive space. But you have to stop looking at the future based on the technology you have today. You have to understand that over tomorrow or next year or the year after, there's going to be better minds than you, who are going to invent new schemes, new protocols, which are going to improve it, right? So with Bulletproofs, the blockchain size drastically reduced in growth, and the rate of growth drastically reduced. The Monero community came out with something called pruning. So if you're running a node and you're carrying a big blockchain, you can run a script and you can prune off unnecessary information, unneeded information. So you can reduce the blockchain size. So there's all these developments going on. I mean, even as a mobile wallet, the synchronization speed, it used to 3 years ago, it used to sit there forever waiting for your wallet to sync. But with improvements now, it syncs in a few minutes. Um, so who knows? Maybe 2 years from now, it'll sync in seconds. The improvements keep coming, not only to performance but also to privacy.
I'd like to just, if you could repeat again, what are the bulletproofs and what function do they serve?
Bulletproofs is a type of range proofs which is used to hide the transacted amount.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish I could go more in technical detail. I
Mhm.
can't.
No, it's
So,
good. It's good for the level that
yeah,
we're trying to touch the tip of the iceberg and to get the best look at possible at it. We're not trying to
yeah,
go anything too deep. And
yeah,
people, because I know a lot of people from the enterprise side of things, from the even from the regulatory side of things, or from the
yeah.
public sector type of things, it sounds off, or it sounds odd to think that there was some projection of what the costs would be, and it actually turned out to be lower.
Right.
If you're not too technical, you have to keep in mind that these systems are incredibly dynamic, and this is why people take a look at such depth at them, because they are ultimately unpredictable, right? You cannot
Hmm.
assess what's going to happen when you make a change until you've actually made it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And even after that, a few months ago, there was another upgrade to Monero, and size of each transaction, speed, everything improved by another 20%. And that was after the massive bulletproofs implementation. So yeah, I have full faith with Monero's doing, and I think it's going to continue attracting uh, bright people in contributing to the space.
So in a perfect world where everyone is using this completely private, completely fungible money, what do you, yeah, how do you envision that to play out? Or what are the advantages in practical life that you think most people would miss?
You know, and that's the big philosophical debate I think everybody can have on privacy coins, how they relate to paying taxes or hiding illicit activities. But again, just like the way the technology improves and as a human race, we find solutions to these problems, I think there will be a solution to that as well. Um, and you can see that even with Bitcoin, right? 2013, 2014, oh, Silk Road, Bitcoin is the drug coin. Now you have Wall Street, you have Michael Saylor, you have Chase Bank, you have CNBC. Now CNBC has in their little, you know what CNBC is, the financial network.
Yeah.
Now you see Dow, Nasdaq, Bitcoin. You know, so times change. There's chain analysis, there's regulation. So there has to be something like that that's going to come up for privacy coins. Now with Monero, even though it's uh, all the time, like I said, privacy all the time, it you can choose to reveal your transaction. So if there is ever a question, hey, did you do this transaction, or show me what your transactions are? Um, you can reveal. You can actually show on the blockchain, hey, these are the transactions I did to these addresses, if need be. So it's what is a opt out privacy. So you can opt out of privacy if you want, but the default is privacy.
Right, and that is, I guess, what some people should understand. That is the main mindset behind this privacy coin, right? It's not
Hmm.
that you are supposed to be private all the time. It's that privacy should be the default.
Right.
And I wanted to
Privacy
hear.
should be the yeah, because if you have optional privacy, then you're kind of weakening the whole pool. you're weakening the whole pool, number one. And number two, also I think about it in a simple sense. Hey, Carlos, I see you have 100 X coins here, and you chose to send 40 of them open ledger, but 60 of them you chose to send privately. Why is that? So that type of information can be revealed, and which may jeopardize everybody else in the pool.
Okay. I wanted to, because you touched on this before very briefly, and I think that's an interesting debate that's pretty much on all the time with Monero, and that is the Bitcoin debate. Some people in Monero might be very critical of Bitcoin itself for being too transparent. What's your view on this? Obviously, you very recently inaugurated the Bitcoin wallet on Cake. So what's the reasoning behind that, and what's your thoughts on this debate?
Well, Monero is very hard to get, to own, to buy. For example, in the US, there's only one exchange which offers Monero, which has a fiat on-ramp for Monero, and that's Kraken. And we do link with third-party exchanges in Cake Wallet. And what our exchange partners tell us is most of the transactions they're seeing for within Cake is Bitcoin to Monero. And we get a lot of support questions, support tickets, where people are like, well, where do I send Bitcoin from? Or how do. So right now, before we put in Bitcoin, you had to use an external wallet, your own Bitcoin wallet from somewhere, and it converted it to Monero. So our primary reason was just to make it easy for our users, so they can have their Bitcoin and Monero in one place, and they don't have to juggle two wallets. The goals that Monero is trying to achieve, the Monero people are trying to achieve, I guess they feel that Bitcoin is antithesis to that. Yeah, Bitcoin is completely opposite of what Monero is trying to do, or is doing, not trying even. Monero Bitcoin number one being an open ledger. Everyone can see everything. Everyone can see what everyone is doing and what that person is doing and what that person is doing, and so on. And number two, that leads to Bitcoin being non-fungible. And like we said at the beginning of this podcast, even Bitcoin maximalists have said, hey, don't send me anything unless you mix it. And little do they know that really doesn't help that much either. And that itself makes it look shady. Daniel Kim, who's a great speaker of in the Monero community, Dr. Daniel Kim, he put it very nicely. He said, dealing in Bitcoin is like dealing in a bar of gold, and you turn that bar of gold over, and you can see everybody that's ever owned it, and what they used it for, and who they sent it to, blah, blah, blah. I think that's a very good analogy. So that's why the Monero community is kind of turned off by Bitcoin. And I don't want to use names. I mean, for example, on a recent interview, I'm not going to say who or what, a Bitcoin maximalist, he didn't even know what the word fungible was. And the Monero community jaws just dropped, like, what? Like, you don't even know what that is? I mean, what are you really pushing? A lot of the Monero community, since they don't talk of money, they feel a lot of the people in the Bitcoin space are just there for the number go up.
Right.
Number goes up, Bitcoin number goes up. So for all these things, I mean, and I do agree, sometimes the Monero community, some of the members can be a little harsh, but I don't think that's representative of the overall community. I think people are quite welcoming and ready to teach, ready to talk, ready to explain whatever anybody wants to talk about when it comes to privacy in Monero.
I personally have a very mixed opinion on this, because we've had a couple people that are in regulation and that come from the regulation world. in this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are incredibly pro Bitcoin nowadays. Back in the day, that what I was telling you off the record, that I used to be in ICO marketing, and they the regulation were never friendly towards Bitcoin or towards anything. And all of a sudden now they've understood that this is a public ledger that everyone can check, and that it's very easy if you have the right tools to analyze. And yeah, all of a sudden they're incredibly pro Bitcoin. That's a bit scary if you think about it, because okay, this could very well be the entry point for a totalitarian regime to run their scheme. And that's something that doesn't get talked at all in the Bitcoin community, which is a bit weird, since kind of their whole motto is stick it to the man and freedom, power to people, and whatever.
Right. I mean, if you want to do something illegal and get it written somewhere for eternity, use Bitcoin.
Right. And
if you want to do something illegal and maybe get caught, exactly. If you want to do something illegal and maybe get caught, use actual cash. You know, or forget even illegal. If you do anything, you buy an Amazon gift card off a Bit Refill, it's there. I mean, it's, you know, sure, it doesn't say Amazon, you know, refill or whatever Amazon gift card on there, but it's there that you sent X amount of Bitcoin to Bit Refill to that address, which chain analysis companies and other companies are probably got that in their records, and they're scanning those addresses all the time. So it doesn't even have to be legal, but now it's known. You bought a, you know, TGIF Fridays gift card that's known for eternity, and you might say, okay, I don't care if people know that. You know, then why do you put a letter in an envelope when you mail it? Why not just mail it? You know, why do you when you send an email, why do you only send it to one person? Blast it out to everybody and hope that person that you send it to would get it. So you know, privacy is something you don't need it until you need it.
Right. And
and Monero people always look at the extreme, you know, very extreme cases.
Right.
Let's say you're in a country where there's an oppressive regime and they're really cracking down on the opposing party, the rebels or whatever you want to call them, right? What happens then? You send them Bitcoin, right? I mean, and this happened recently. The big news came out after the in the United States that a huge Bitcoin payment was made to a white supremacist group. You should have used Monero. I'm not supporting white supremacy at all, but you know, I'm saying if you want to make payments and keep it private, Bitcoin's the wrong way to go.
And this is verbatim from this last MoneroCon. And I'm just repeating what I heard in that video, and I thought it was very interesting, right? In the first world countries or in the developed nations, people have a sense that privacy is just something you do so you don't get targeted ads, right? Just so
you don't get targeted. Exactly.
Just so Amazon doesn't get to spy on your phone and send you ads for babies if you were just talking about babies or whatever. But not ads for babies, ads for diapers or whatever, not for actual babies. But you get to think about other nations, like nations in Africa, South America, even in like darker parts of Europe, that regimes can get out of control and they can crack down, as you say, on the opposite party members or on journalists or whatever, and the consequences can be pretty bad. It's a question of life and death, definitely. And it's better to have an alternative that closes out that option as much as possible, right?
Yep, exactly.
Tell me a bit about this. If you can tell me a bit about how you build Cake Wallet, because it's an interesting thing that you told me that you kind of built it in a vacuum and then you jump into the Monero community with a full built product. So how was the process like?
Well, I'll tell you a story, and if Monero people are listening to this, I'm sorry, you've heard this story many times, but maybe non-Monero people haven't heard this. Back in late 2016, early 2017, and I'd been in Bitcoin for a while. I've been since 2013. I was mining it, playing around with it. Yeah, it was nice. It was fun. Numbers were going up, but I was like, I want to use it. I want to use it for something. But where are you going to, late 2016, early 2017, where are you going to use your Bitcoin? Not many places. So I thought, let me get on the dark web. Yeah. My wife, sorry, my wife wanted antibiotics. And I was like, I don't feel like going to the doctor. In the US, you can't get antibiotics, biotics, unless you go to a doctor and get a prescription. Unlike other countries, you know
Right.
what you want, you walk into a pharmacy and get it. So I thought, let me get on the dark web and let me buy some antibiotics. I swear to God, it was just antibiotics. And I used my Coinbase account to pay in Bitcoin. And within 24 hours, Coinbase sends me an email. You have violated section blah, blah, blah of your terms of service, and we're closing your account. Please move your assets.
Really?
And I was like, how the, yeah. And so I cannot be on Coinbase or Gemini, by the way. And I didn't understand it, to tell you the truth, at that time, that how open Bitcoin is and how trackable it is. And I thought, how the hell did they know that I sent Bitcoin to whatever address? And I thought, oh my God, this is insane. But at the same time, I was on the dark web, and I'll tell you the name of the darknet market. Is called Alpha Bay. I don't know if you remember that one. It was pretty popular, I guess. They had another coin on there that they would accept. It wasn't Litecoin, it wasn't Dash, it wasn't Ethereum. It was something called Monero. And I thought, what the hell is this? Why Bitcoin, which is the biggest coin out there, and this little unheard of coin called Monero? So that intrigued me. So maybe getting there and getting off of Coinbase, maybe it was all part of my journey, And I started looking into Monero. I'm like, okay, what is this? How to use it? And I started reading anything and watching any videos I could. And I didn't get on the subreddit for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I'd go on it here and there randomly, but it was more just going on the Get Monero website or looking at presentations, watching YouTube videos. There's a lot of information out there. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is excellent. And it's private. And the same thing that happened to me can't happen to somebody else. And I thought, okay, but how do you use it? You have to you have to download the GUI, you have to use the desktop, or they had the command line. And I think there was an Android wallet in the works, or maybe it was already live, but there was nothing for iOS. And I thought, okay, this is something I need to do. But we did it in a vacuum because we didn't want to fail.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want to announce it and then fail. And in 2017, where do you find blockchain engineers? Where do you find Bitcoin engineers? Where do you find developers that know these things? It's almost impossible. So I had a small team which was already doing some random apps, fun stuff for me. And I was always doing fun projects, which I would forget about 2 months later, and they would just die off. I'm like, oh, let's move on to the next thing. It's purely a hobby for me. And I spoke to him, our main guy, and I said, can we do this? And let's do this. And he said, well, I have no idea if we can do this or not. And he went off, him and another couple guys went off and studied this for about 3-4 months. And I paid for their education. And after 3-4 months, they came back and said, yeah, let's do this. I think let's jump on this. And again, we just built it purely in a vacuum. Nobody even knew. I think the day we launched was the day we announced, and we went on the Apple App Store, was the first day r/Monero heard about it. And I remember the whole thing. It was like a bomb. They were like, what the hell is this? Who are you? And I didn't sleep. We launched on a Friday morning in January 2018. And I didn't sleep until Sunday night. I was up from Friday morning to Sunday night answering questions. So initially we launched it as a closed source project. Why did we not go open source? The truth is, I didn't know. I didn't know what open source meant. I didn't know what closed source meant. And the Monero community was very quick to educate me, to educate us on that what open source is, and they would not use the wallet unless we went open source. But they were very helpful. They were very helpful in educating us on different types of open source licenses, what have you, and guiding us through that whole process. And 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks after we launched, we went open source. We put all our code on GitHub, built a repo there, and laid it all out there for everyone to see.
What's the experience of going open source actually like? Yeah.
It's really nothing. It's you choose one of the open source licenses that you feel you can handle and you can work with, and you put all your code on GitHub. That's pretty much it. So we chose the MIT license, which basically says you can use our code and you give credit back to the creator. That's it.
Right.
And
I mean,
in a nutshell, it's much longer than that, but that's pretty much
of course. So yeah, for the more, and I include myself here, for the more technically illiterate, if you go and take your wallet open source, and this is a thing that you develop privately, and you make it completely open source, you're almost cutting away your possible revenue stream, right?
I mean, you are, and I don't know. A month ago, I was on another podcast, and somebody asked me the same question: that why aren't other wallets going open source? You know, why are you not fearing that your code will get copied and someone will just make a knockoff? And it's happened. Somebody's used a big chunk of our code to make some wallet, not one for Monero, and I think it's died out, but another one for another type of coin, which is a fork of Monero, which is another crypto note coin. It's fine. I mean, you know, it makes you work harder. It makes you be one step ahead of the competition. If somebody copies your code, so what? You can, you know, you just have to be better. You just have to be one step ahead. You have to keep thinking. You have to keep innovating. You have to add new features. In a way, I feel it's a motivating factor. I mean, if you put out a closed source, you know, nobody can copy, nobody can do anything. So you just kind of maybe get lazy.
Right.
But anyway, back to Monero. So Monero, I mean, there's just so many things to like about it. You know, as I said, it wasn't built on a trusted setup like some other coins were. You know, for some other coins, there had to be a starting point, a setup where then the system starts working, and you're trusting that setup. You're trusting the people who set it up to that. You know, they didn't put a backdoor or some kind of code in there. So, you know, Monero purely, there's no trusted setup, no pre-mine, no dev tax, fully open source. Community is wonderful, and what I like about it most is all the privacy, all the time, every platform. It doesn't matter.
I'm curious.
That's my spiel on Monero. Yeah.
What would what are you currently excited about when it comes to wallets? Because at least us people that are not thinking about wallets every minute of every day, for us the concept is pretty simple, right? So you put money and it stays there, and if it achieves those two functions, it's a good wallet. But what are you actually looking forward to being able to do with new integrations, with new features?
Yeah, so I mean, the crypto space is brand new, and it's changing all the times. But I view the wallet as the thing, how should I say, the entry point of any user. Without a wallet, all this technology is meaningless. Whatever you want to call it, a wallet or whatever. You know, with Monero, we talked about even for Bitcoin, you know, it's a command line stuff. You know, where only techies can use. if a technology exists and the common man can't use it, it's pretty worthless, right?
Right.
So I view wallets as the thing that you need to be able to operate cryptocurrencies. Otherwise, just sitting there and nobody can use it. That's the reason I went into this. Is number one, make Monero easy to use for everyone, but also to be at that entry point for the user where they're actually interacting and transacting cryptocurrency. So I think wallets are playing and will play a huge part in this space.
And back in 2017, when was first getting acquainted to some aspects of the crypto world, especially with the non-marketing parts, the more technical parts about blockchains and everything, I remember listening to this episode of the Tim Ferriss podcast. This episode they did with Nick Szabo and with
Who's podcast?
Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
The author of the 4 Hour Workweek, that guy.
Okay, that guy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did an episode with Naval Ravikant from AngelList and Nick Szabo from Bitcoin first days, and they were explaining blockchain in a very friendly way, and I remember that one helped me a lot. And all of a sudden, when you hear Bitcoin pumping and it's on everywhere and it's in all the news, a lot of people know you as that guy who does Bitcoin, and they start asking questions, right? And that's the place that I redirect them to. I was listening to it again recently because why not? It's like good to get updated on information. And it surprised me how much of the problems that we had and that we knew that we had to solve in crypto in 2018 when that was recorded, it really stood out to me, not 2017, it stood out to me how prevalent those are. Like they were talking about these very same issues, how it's important to have good entry points for people, how it's important to have their experience using crypto be equally as good or even better than fiat currency or just the general banking system. Uh, why do you think we haven't come as far as we could have in all these issues?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the simple answer is that it's a new technology. It's something we've only seen happen in the world 10 years ago, and 10 years is nothing. So, and that's a very good question. But purely, I feel is just because it's a new technology, it's going to take time to develop. It's going to take time to improve. It's going to take time for new tools to come up, like Cake Wallet. And there's still some challenges with cryptocurrency, and some of those are the nature of cryptocurrency. For example, I'll give you one we face all the time is scanning the blockchain. That's a integral part. It's the nature of blockchain. You have this public ledger that needs to be scanned to find your transactions, and that takes time sometimes, and that frustrates people because right now they can open up Venmo, they can open up PayPal, and they see their balance immediately and they can send that immediately. Where if you're using a non-custodial wallet, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time to sync to the blockchain and get that information. So those challenges are there right now, which may turn off the everyday user from using cryptocurrency. But what does it mean? It means the technology, the code has to improve. And just in 3-4 years in Monero, for example, it's improved almost 100%, maybe 1,000%. So what's in store for the next 3 years? I think these things are going to keep improving.
And we were talking about how decentralized or distributed the Monero community is, how everything is open source, how there's people all over the world continuously working on all this. What do you credit the most to in having development be this good and this fast? What do you think makes it special?
I'm sorry, say that again. You got cut off.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, because we think about how everything is open source and decentralized and distributed, and having you constantly mention how the community is making these big leaps, of
Mhm.
advancement. So, what do you credit for them to be able to do this? What do you think they're doing right that other communities could copy?
I see. Since it's truly open source, anyone is allowed to contribute thoughts or ideas or code to the community, and everything is looked at without prejudice. And why is that? Why is that in Monero and maybe not in other communities? Because Monero welcomes attacks on Monero. Justin Ehrenhofer ran a show on YouTube for a long time called Breaking Monero. It was about finding faults of Monero, finding how you can crack, how you can hack, how you can extract information from the blockchain. What are the weak points of Monero? So I think the Monero community welcomes skepticism. They welcome questions about Monero, whereas other communities I've seen, and I personally have been on, Telegram or their subreddit or whatever, and I question something or I point out some major flaw in their technology, in their protocol, and you get banned from that community for asking those questions. Where Monero, it's totally the opposite. If you ask questions like that, you're welcome even more. Like, okay, what is this? What's this vulnerability? How can we fix it? What's causing it? Um, and people independently or in groups start working on those issues, or they put up a funding request for studying that vulnerability. Um, or they've studied it and now they want to build a patch or a fix or an improvement. So the Monero community welcomes all that. And I think since it welcomes, it's like a snowball effect, since that mindset and that culture is there, that attracts other people with the same mindset and same culture, um, and unlike other coins. So to answer your question, why does that happen in Monero and it doesn't happen in other places? It happens in Monero because it happens in Monero, and that just attracts more people to follow that philosophy and that culture.
Right. I don't want to spend too much time talking about other projects and other coins. This is
Yeah,
not
that's fine. I don't.
this is not the goal of
Exactly.
this episode. But I have to ask
Right.
you, um, what do you think of other privacy coins, of other privacy projects in this space? And for everyone listening here, we're not going to be using far examples for this one. You're safe.
Yeah, I mean, you have to question. I just gave you the example of breaking Monero, in which the Monero community basically tells you, hey, this is where Monero is weak. This is where Monero can break. This is where maybe you can extract information. Whereas I feel the other communities hide that fact, hide the vulnerabilities. Um, and maybe they're lying to their users. I hate to use such a strong word, but that is a fact. And again, we're not going to use any names of other coins, but OneCoin always advertised itself as a privacy coin and continued to do so, and bashing Monero. And once now they got kicked off some exchange, immediately they say, oh, we're not a privacy coin. We have the same privacy as Bitcoin. So were you lying then or were you lying now? Um, so you have to question. I mean, even with Monero, you should question, and you should study it and try to understand it. But at least personally, for me, I've seen in the Monero world, they're the first to come out and say, "Hey, this is a flaw of Monero. Be careful. Don't do this, or improve your OPSEC on this facet of Monero if you're going to use it this way." Whereas other coins have hidden it.
Okay. And if you think about this panorama of privacy coins, there are, of course, not that many ones. You can pretty much count them, or at least count the important ones with the fingers of one hand, right? Um,
Yeah.
do you think there are any positives that are some other people are building that are either looking at things in a good way or that could be even implemented for Monero?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always, um, I don't know what's being developed out there, but I mean, of course, I mean, you can't rule anything out. Any new technology or system or protocol that comes up, that somebody could be using, yes, why not? It could be good. Um, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head where, somebody's doing something and we're thinking, hey, we should do that in Monero. Nothing comes at the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, that's completely fair. And
Yeah.
decentralization, of course, it's a big value for Monero, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
a big value for this community. And as much
Mm-hmm.
as there are clashes between the Bitcoin community and the Monero community, I think that is
Mm-hmm.
something where everyone also tends to agree, right? Even when you
Right.
have clashes between the Bitcoin and the Ethereum community as well, which is
Yeah.
something that also tends to happen. Mm, do you think there is any risk for these decentralized projects to, yeah, that they're facing that other more centralized options are not facing? Or is decentralization always working in favor of Monero in this case?
There's positive and negatives to both. I mean, the big negative of a decentralized project like Monero is, okay, you don't like what they're doing, you can fork it off and create Carlos Monero. You can, so you do have that risk. But overall, I think that the advantages you have for an open source project, as compared to some closed, I can't even think of a closed project. The benefits outweigh anything you can get from a closed source. Maybe a closed source project, you would have VC funding, or faster development, more unanimity. But other than that, I think in the long run, the open source projects will win out.
You can, well, this is something that I know the community is really interested in highlighting what is open source and what is decentralized and what isn't. And in that note, what brings you to integrate the first decentralized project Bitcoin into your wallet? What's the thought line in there?
I'm sorry, what's the way?
Yeah, why are you building Bitcoin into Cake now?
Yeah,
Why
look,
wasn't this done before, and why now? And what? Yeah, what's the thinking there?
well, Monero was done first because, again, there was no Monero wallet, and we wanted to make it easier for everyone to use Monero. Um, Bitcoin, I mean, we did it for various reasons. I think we touched on this earlier. Number one, Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It's the number one most popular Bitcoin currency, cryptocurrency. So I think we had to do it. But I think a bigger reason for us was conversion to Monero. As I talked earlier, Monero is very difficult to get in the US. I don't know about other countries. Only one exchange in the US carries it. So we wanted people to have an on ramp, at least from Bitcoin, to get to Monero, and to make it easy for the user to have their Bitcoin and Monero in the same space. And third reason is, if people do download Cake Wallet just for Bitcoin, when they go to create wallets, they'll see another thing called Monero, and hopefully they'll say, hey, what is this? Why does this wallet only have 2 coins? And hopefully they'll study it, and hopefully that'll lead them into adopting Monero.
Speaking about studying, and well, so we can start closing off this episode. What would you recommend to those that want to start embracing this Monero philosophy and learning more about Monero itself, or maybe even start using it?
Sure, sure. Before I answer that, I'd like to touch on one more thing about Monero, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead for sure.
And this is a huge thing. We keep talking about decentralization and centralization. One other problem with Bitcoin, which the Monero community sees, and I think we've tackled that, is the centralization of mining. Yeah. Even back in 2013, 2014, when I started mining Bitcoin, you couldn't just use your everyday computer. I had to get an ASIC computer, which I paid thousands and thousands of dollars for on eBay. So what's happening with Bitcoin is this mining is just becoming centralized. You can't be a small miner. You can't just turn on your computer and start mining and do something meaningful. To be a Bitcoiner nowadays and do something meaningful, you have to be spending millions of dollars, build huge mining farms. And what does that what happens if the mining ends up being in the hands of the wealthy, of people who can afford it, and the number gets reduced? So mining slowly in Bitcoin is becoming centralized. So what did Monero do? Monero would in the previous years, and I'll get to the new thing they did. Every 6 months, they would change the mining algorithm. And since they changed the mining algorithm, those ASICs became useless. So the ASICs would then take that algorithm, come out with new ASICs, reprogram their chips, and put out new ASICs, and the game would begin again. The mining would go up because all these ASICs were on the network. And again, 6 months later, the Monero community would change the algorithm. So this went on for many years. Then finally, about 2 years ago, the Monero community came up with something called Random X. Random X is a mining algorithm which basically makes ASIC mining useless. So why is that important? That's important because anybody with a simple computer, with a CPU, you don't even need a GPU, with a simple CPU, a simple computer you can buy off the shelf at Best Buy or Amazon, what have you, and you can start mining. You can be part of the Monero network. You can become a miner immediately. So what does that mean? That means more people, the mining will be spread out in millions and millions of these small computers, rather than Bitcoin being just managed by a few big players that have the money to build massive mining farms. So that's, not many people talk about that, not many people acknowledge that, but that's a huge thing that Monero has accomplished. They've put mining back into the hands of the people rather than the large corporations building these big mining farms. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Would you say for the, I was aware of that, but of course there are so many points that we can touch on here, right? But I was aware of that, and I wanted to ask you, this was on my questions from the beginning. How profitable do you think it is for the average person to be mining Monero?
Right now, it's not. It's not profitable. I mean, I think anybody who's doing it is doing it to support Monero and do it. But you know, difficulty levels, all these things are not static. They keep changing. I mean, Bitcoin is impossible to mine right now. It's very difficult unless you're putting in a massive farm and even then you put in that massive processing power in the mining network, and within 6 months the difficulty level is going to change, and then you're going to be back to square one.
Right, or you could catch a negative trend in the market line, and then you're absolutely wrecked on all the money you spent building your farming facility, which is always an option. Are there any other points, such as mining, that you'd like to highlight on for those that are just learning about Monero here?
So to go back to your question about the profitability, if you're running a simple, I don't know, I don't know, Dell computer, I don't know, whatever, Mac or whatever kind of little desktop computer you're running. Is profitability such a big question? That type of simple CPU computer is using such little electricity, it's meaningless. But you are supporting the network. You are keeping the mining decentralized by being a miner. So maybe for small players or individual to democratize mining, the profit motive is almost gone. If you're with me.
Yeah.
You're frozen, so I don't know if you're,
Yeah.
So, do you understand what I'm saying? So
Right.
maybe if you're running a simple computer on your desktop, does the profit really matter? I mean, how much are you going to make off a simple CPU anyway?
Right.
But
It's
you
not
are
like you're going
helping.
for the millions, right?
Exactly. So but you're going to help the mining network stay decentralized.
And that is a huge thing on itself, especially when you come across
Right.
with a community like this, that it's sort of opposed to the more libertarian Bitcoin community, that it's not so much in it for making gains and everything, but for building a future, almost an anarchist vision of the future, or of
Mm-hmm.
what money should become in the digital age.
Right.
If you want, if you have any other pointers that you'd like to give people to learn about, or if there's anything else that you think they really should know when they're looking at Monero for the first time, it'd be great for you to share those as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Monero for the first time, you're going to see that it has no cap. Like Bitcoin has the 21 million cap. And you'll think, okay, well, then this is worthless because there's just going to be new Monero generated. So the first thing is that the Monero community put this tail emission, as they call it. So after 18 million are mined, there's going to be a small amount, fixed amount every year that's going to be generated. There's a lot of reasons the Monero community did this, but one of the main reasons is to keep mining, to incentivize mining. With Bitcoin, after 20 years, 30 years, or even 100 years after all the Bitcoin is mined, why would you continue mining? There's there's no block reward. Why would you continue mining? So that means you would mine for the fees. Then the fees theoretically could go through the roof if your only incentive is the network fee. So the Monero people came out with this thing called tail emission, which, after all the Monero is mined, there's going to be continuously forever Monero that's mined. But it's not a percentage, it's a fixed amount. So every year, the amount of Monero that's mined is actually going to be a smaller percent of the total float, of the total Monero that's out there. So that's a big key point, and you'll see that on Twitter or Reddit. People bring that up, like, oh, it's worthless because there's gonna be an infinite amount. Well, it's going to be, it really comes out to an inflation of about 2% a year, and that number goes down. I mean, gold right now is 2%. We find about 2% gold every year, but
All
nobody's
right.
saying gold is
We know
worthless.
we know it's finite somehow, right? But it doesn't quite seem to be right now, and you always wonder if they're not hiding some of the gold that they found just to maintain the price.
Right, exactly. And I think in the Bitcoin Standard in the book, it talks about what 90% of the gold that's out there was only mined in the last 70 years. Yeah, so who knows what's in the next 70 years? And with Elon Musk wanting to mine asteroids,
Right.
that could make it worthless.
that
So I
can
mean,
really make it worthless.
yeah, I mean the steady inflation in Monero is number one, to incentivize the miners, and number two is to secure the network. And Monero people ask what will happen in Bitcoin if people lose interest in mining. what does that mean? How are the blocks going to get processed? So, in Bitcoin, people say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. That's 100 years away. We'll see when that happens."
Right.
But Monero is trying to tackle that problem right now.
I guess also Bitcoin people and in general the Bitcoin line of thinking is that all these things should be fixed by layer two solutions, right? By people
Right.
building onto new things upon it. And what do you see would be the layer two additions into Monero as this could happen with Bitcoin?
I mean, there's nothing in the works that I know of. But I think the Monero people would view that as a vulnerability. Um, with the Lightning network of Bitcoin, a lot of Bitcoin people say, well, the Lightning network provides privacy, but you're able to see that um, on ramp and off ramp of Bitcoin into the Lightning network. But anyway, going back to Monero, I don't think there's anything in the works that I've heard of, and I don't see a need for it. Um, right now, the fees are low, the transactions happen pretty fast. I don't see a need for it right now.
And we've almost been talking about Monero and Bitcoin, both as communities and as, let's call them mindset or philosophies, as two opposing things, right? Like a yin and a yang that somehow balance each other. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what are your, and we don't need to spend too much time on this, what are your thoughts on the other options on the market? Do you feel like Ethereum and decentralized finance is building something positive to achieve these the ideals that are supported by the Monero community?
Um, I think, I think what Ethereum is doing and DeFi and all that, I definitely think it's the future of banking and finance. Um, it's in its infancy. The gas fees are high, but there's Ethereum 2 is supposed to come out, and other blockchains which supposedly are better than Ethereum, and people are trying to build smart contracts and DeFi platforms on those blockchains. So I think it's definitely the future. With Monero, I think somehow, some way, something will happen in the future where Monero and DeFi will meet and there'll be an intersection. And the reason I think that is because of atomic swaps that are coming out from Monero. There's been a group that's been working on atomic swaps between Bitcoin and Monero. So I think if that is achievable, I think there will be a way then to go to the next step. We're able to do an atomic swap with a DeFi coin, or maybe a wrapped Monero or something like that, where you're able to put your Monero to work in a DeFi environment. Is it happening today? No. Could it happen in the future? Yeah, I could see the steps going in that direction.
I mean, yeah, like if you talked about all the DeFi things that we were witnessing day by day with someone in 2017, that would seem completely out of reach. But all of a sudden, once someone hits jackpot with these innovative ideas, you see how people start building and building upon them, and it starts raining.
Right.
It's been really great to have you here. It opened a lot of great points here. What would you, bringing back that question, what would you recommend to those wanting to learn more about Monero and about this philosophy, and how can they contribute even if they want to?
Sure. I would say start with the official website for Monero, which is getmonero.org. I would say start there. Come to the subreddit. There are Monero IRC channels, and the discussions there are open. There's core team and development discussions going on all the time. Too technical for me, to be honest with you. But yeah, I would say start there. Start with getmonero.org. Start with Reddit. Start with YouTube. And if you really want to get into it, then get on the IRC, Internet Relay Chat. And all those channels, I believe, are listed on getmonero.org. And if not, you can always ask on Reddit.
I would actually also advise people that want to get into Monero and learn something about it. And this is something that I had to do myself in preparation for this interview, to try and make a Monero transaction, open a Cake account, use it, see how it looks
I
like.
I didn't want to plug Cake Wallet again.
I mean, it looks weird if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a true blockchain experience, then download Cake Wallet. And then play around with it and try to send yourself Monero for sure.
And try and use it, because once you understand the difference of how it feels like as a user to use Cake Wallet or whatever Monero, whatever way you want to use to send yourself some Monero or send someone some Monero, and you compare it to the Bitcoin experience, you can see if it is for you. Maybe it doesn't feel right, maybe it feels right, maybe you get behind the philosophy, maybe you get behind the mindset, and it's something that you want to keep contributing to. So, Vik, any parting thoughts?
No, that's about it. I mean, as Fluffy Pony said a long time ago, don't buy and hold Monero. Actually use it. Use it for transactions, and you'll see that it's much superior than Bitcoin.
Right, and I think that is the perfect way to conclude this. If you are thinking about Monero, think about it as cash. Think about it as something that you use, not just about something that you hold as an investment. Vik, it's been great to have you. Thank you very much for everyone thanks to everyone that's still watching. Thanks to your dog for being a part of this interview as well.
I gotta go find him.
For everyone that's still listening, here at Decor, as you know, we're a decentralized team of crypto researchers. We do our research on ICO projects, on IEO projects, on already established projects. So if you'd like to also contribute to that, make sure to visit our website, d/core.net. You can join us as a researcher, or you can see all of our output, everything that we've come up with to try and analyze the players in the market. So join us. As we said here with Vik, learn more about Monero, continue down this path. And thank you very much for listening. And again, thank you, Vik.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Same here. And here we can
talk. If anyone has any questions, they can reach me on Twitter or Telegram or Reddit.
Okay, perfect. Would you like to just quickly drop us your Twitter handle?
Sure. My Twitter handle is kind of complicated. I guess the easiest would be just go to Cake Wallet, at Cake Wallet.
Perfect. And they do reply, even on Reddit, user Cake Wallet. Big reply to me in a matter
Wallet of... And I'm always on it. And Telegram is also Cake Wallet.
Okay, perfect. So thanks everyone. Thanks, Vik.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Take care.